A strange young woman showed up on my door and I think she's my daughter. Can I approach this with her delicately? I, 48M, met my wife, 44F, when I was in my mid to late 30s. I was a bachelor, never married, career and hobby focused and not open to a serious relationship. 2 years later we were married, joyfully so, and we've had a really solid marriage. My wife and I are extremely close, share everything, and keep no secrets. Our kids are our two Shih Tzus and they run the house. My wife is a school administrator and does mental health counseling. She is the sort of person who absolutely everyone loves, who everyone wants to be around. She lights up the room when she enters. But she has sadness in her too. She's not able to have children and stayed single for a very long time prior to us meeting because of that. About a month ago, on a Saturday morning, the doorbell rang. My wife and the dogs answered it. I could tell my wife was having a hard time hearing over the barking, so I walked over, picked up the Shih Tzu barking ringleader which always quiets him down, and saw a young woman standing there. She was nicely dressed and holding a file folder stuffed with papers. She introduced herself, looked me square in the eyes, and said more than asked, "You're so-and-so by name." I immediately thought she was a process server and I was being sued. So I confirmed I was me and she asked if we could talk about a delicate family matter. My wife opened the door and invited her in. We sat at the dining room table and she began talking. She told us her name, we'll pretend it's Kate Doe 19F, her mother was Clara Doe. I immediately recognized the name. I dated Clara, her mother, seriously 20 years ago. We broke up around 18 years ago due to a combination of factors limited to proximity to family, relocation, and work. Clara's only family were her parents who had retired to Florida and she had been struggling being away from them. Her mother and I loved each other very much, but sometimes love just isn't enough. I never heard from Clara again when she moved to be near them and my work kept me tethered to where I was living. Anyway, Kate was there to settle her mother's will. She apologized to my wife, citing how unusual and awkward this situation must be for her. Clara had left a box filled with memory cards which I knew must be filled with photos we had taken and printed photos of our time while dating and her sailboat to me. We had spent a tremendous amount of time on her boat when we were together, sailing all over the place in our area. It's a 45-foot blue water cruiser and was her prized possession. Over the years when I've thought back to Clara and that time in my life, my mind goes immediately to the time we spent on the boat. The boat is a significant asset and I suggested to Kate that she take it instead, that it should go to her. But she insisted that this was what her mother wanted and she agreed with her mother on that, and that her mother had taken care of her, she wasn't in need of anything, and that she hoped I would feel comfortable accepting it. As it turns out, Kate's grandparents passed about 10 years ago and now that her mother has passed, she had no family left. That she had the same last name as Clara meant to me that her father wasn't in the picture for whatever reason. And she told us that the boat was too much for her to take care of properly. So I signed some paperwork to transfer the title. We spoke a while about Kate, how she's holding up, if there was anything we could do for her. My wife gave her our contact info, which she obviously already had, but it was an intentional gesture from my wife, and encouraged her to reach out to either of us if there was anything we could do for her or if she ever wanted to talk. And then she left. Over the next week or so we worked with her over email to travel to Florida to assess the boat and to maybe spend a little time seeing the area together. My wife and Kate had taken to messaging a lot over FB Messenger, casually chatting about mundane life things. At the same time, my wife and I began speculating about how wild and unusual this situation is. We're both thinking that Kate might be a child I never knew I had. I think the timing for it lines up, if she was born about 9 months after we broke up. It was so long ago that I can't remember the dates, but am fairly confident about the year. We traveled to Florida. We stayed in a hotel for 2 nights and spent Friday evening through Sunday afternoon with Kate. We spent a good portion of Saturday on the boat. It has been impeccably maintained. Yes, some minor things, but every boat has minor things. Boats are holes you toss money and time into. After that, we hung out with Kate and learned about her life, told her about ours, saw the area, had some good food. Then we flew home. We're now planning on sailing the boat back up to where I live when the weather warms up more by way of the ICW. The 3 of us. Sometime in June or July. So that's the background. I want to confront Kate about who her father is. I don't know if she knows and is keeping it from me, if she doesn't know, if it's someone else. She looks just like her mother. When I look at her, her face, her eyes, it's like I'm looking at her mother. Her hair is slightly darker than her mother's, blonde and super bushy/curly, like my hair, and probably half the population's hair. How do I engage in discussion with a deceased ex-girlfriend's kid about parentage? I feel that my wife and I have a right to know if she's my kid and that I have a right to be there for her, even if it's just in waiting if she wants nothing to do with me after this. But she's also going through a lot, not just in losing her mother, which I'm honestly feeling loss about as well because her mother was a truly kind and good person, but in facing the reality that she no longer has living family. I also don't want to chase her away or overwhelm her by adding to everything that she's going through. I feel like we're building a friendship and want to handle this delicately. How do you raise this in discussion? If any of you have been through something similar, how did you handle it and would you recommend a similar approach? TLDR, I think I have a daughter who showed up on my doorstep to settle her mother's will and want to determine if she actually is and have no idea how to do that delicately and responsibly.